Welcome, my friends, to the grandest illusion ever staged, where the captors wear suits instead of ski masks, and the ransom is called taxes, and the hostages cheer for their own captivity. You, my friend, my dear viewer, are living in a hostage crisis. So elaborate, so brilliantly orchestrated that most people don't even realize that they have been taken. This isn't your typical kidnapping thriller. There's no dark basement. There's no ransom. There's no scribbled, shaky handwriting. Just a world where people willingly fund their own oppression, swallow poison labeled nutrients, and wave flags for leaders who rob them blind. It's a nation seized with Stockholm syndrome epidemic. And the government is holding the puppet strings. Imagine that world. They've got a solution for all your problems, conveniently sold by the very corporations that create them. Feeling sick? They've got a pill for that. Feeling poor? They've got a loan for that. I mean, if you can prove that you don't need it. Feeling like the system is corrupt? They've got a distraction for that. Usually in the form of a scandal, a celebrity meltdown, or a conveniently timed global crisis. I think we can name it now. We won't name it. Meanwhile, few rebels, the ones that see through the veil, are screaming into the void, warning the others, only to be met with laughter, ridicule, and ironically, accusations of being brainwashed. you know? Because in this hostage situation, the hardest chains to break aren't made of steel. They're made of comfort and compliancy and denial. So, my friends, buckle up. This isn't just a story, it's a mirror. And if you dare look closely, you just might see the bars of your own cage. Well, what up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. We've got a great story today. Today's story is called The Great Captivity, A Nation in Chains, and it's by an anonymous observer. The introduction is called The Syndrome of a Nation. For centuries, the concept of Stockholm Syndrome has been associated with hostage situations where captives develop an emotional bond with their captors. But what happens when a captor is not masked criminal, but an institution? What happens when an abduction is so gradual, so insidious, that the hostages don't even realize that they have been taken? Welcome to the modern world, where the governments have perfected the art of control, creating a population that funds its own oppression, worships its own captors, and scorns those who attempt to free them. The citizens are not bound by chains of iron, but by chains of belief, deception, and submission. This is the story of a society held hostage, a society where the strongest minds break free, but the weakest kneel willingly, a society where the very people who should be fighting back instead beg for more shackles. This is the story of the Great Captivity. The abductors, a government of poison. The captors in this tale are not a foreign invader or a warlord with an army. They wear suits, hold press conferences, and pretend to serve the people while slowly stripping them of their autonomy. This government operates in the shadows of legality, passing laws and policies that erode freedoms while convincing the masses that it's all for their own good. Through the illusion of democracy, they keep hostages believing that they have a choice. Every few years, they allow them to vote, not for freedom, but for two different jailers, both working for the same machine. The illusion is necessary to keep the hostages docile, to keep them believing in false hope, that change is always one election away. But control doesn't just stop at legislation. The government allows and even encourages corporate partners in crime to keep the population weak, sick, and subservient. The food supply is laced with poisons labeled as preservatives and artificial flavors. The pharmaceutical industries profit from illnesses that should never have existed, treating symptoms while ignoring causes. The mind is drugged through experimental entertainment, social media, and relentless streams of propaganda disguised as news. The system is not broken. It's working exactly how it was designed. The hostages, a population in a trance. Despite the obvious signs, many of the hostages refuse to see their chains. They have been conditioned, generation after generation, to believe that captivity is security, that obedience is patriotism, and that questioning authority is a crime. For these people, government is not only an enemy, but a protector. They cheer as their tax dollars are funneled into wars they do not understand, applaud as their rights are legislated away, believing it is all to keep them safe. To break free would require them to acknowledge an uncomfortable truth, and that is everything they have been taught is a lie. Man, that's got to be hard to fathom. And that their trust has been betrayed, that their reality is an illusion. For many, this is just way too much to bear. It's easier to be a prisoner than to fight for freedom. The revolutionaries, those who will see through the veil. Not only are not all people blind, but some have managed to awaken, to recognize the captors for what they are. They see the manipulation, the deception, the slow poisoning of body and mind. They see how the government and corporations work hand in hand to keep the people weak, compliant, and fearful. These individuals do not ask for permission to be free. They take it. They reject the poisons. They reject the lies. They reject the comfortable numbness of captivity. They gather, they speak, they fight, and their slogan is simple yet powerful. Make souls great again. Make souls great again. They believe in a world where men and women are strong, where knowledge is not censored, but pursued, where health is not an industry, but a birthright, and where the government does not rule, but it serves. Their battle is not just against the government. It's against the conditioned minds of the hostages who have grown to love the chains. They are labeled as extremists, radicals, threats to the very people they are trying to save. To the captors, they are dangerous. To the hostages, they're traitors. And to themselves, they are the last hope of a dying civilization. The hardest battle will be fighting those who love their chains. It is said that weak men create hard times, and that hard times create weak men. The cycle of civilization has reached a stage where weakness is the dominant force, and, well, hard times have fallen upon us inevitably. And the question is, will enough strong men rise before it is too late? The hardest battle is not against the government. It's against the citizens who defend their captors. It is against those who, despite all evidence, still trust a system that is actively destroying them. These people want to be ruled. They want to be taken care of. They do not wish to think critically or act independently because that requires effort. It's too hard. It's far too easier to obey and to comply and to let someone else make all the decisions for you. Besides how many drinks you're going to have and which donut and whatever pieces of candy that you're going to eat and all the other things that you don't really need choices for. This is the greatest advantage of the captors have. They do not need to enforce the change. The hostages will do it themselves. They will fight against their own freedom. Believing that they are fighting for justice, they will attack those who speak the truth, calling them conspiracy theorists, extremists, or even domestic terrorists. And so the revolutionaries face a battle on two fronts, against the captors who wish to keep them enslaved, and against the hostages who love their captivity. The future, awakening or collapse? History tells us that no empire lasts forever. Every system of control eventually falls, but the manner in which it falls is determined by the people within it. Will the hostages finally awaken and overthrow their captors? Or will they cling to the chains until civilization crumbles into ruins? The answer lies within the strength of those willing to fight. If enough people awaken, there's hope. If they do not, the cycle will continue. Weakness will lead to collapse, and from the ruin, strong men will rise once again. But the battle for freedom is eternal. The question is, will you fight for it, or will you kneel? The time to choose is now. Make the soul great again. All right, guys. All right. The tariffs are working so good. We're going to do the tariffs on the channel here, okay? So everybody who's watching the channel right now, 25% of you are going to have to subscribe. It's mandatory. You're just going to have to do it, okay?